Somewhere in your house right now, there is a device that still works perfectly. A phone, a laptop, maybe a pair of earbuds. It charges, it runs your apps, it does everything you bought it to do. And yet, at some point in the last 6 months, you looked at it and thought, maybe it's time for an upgrade. That thought felt completely natural, completely yours. But here is the truth. That thought did not come from you. It was placed there, deliberately, strategically. It was placed there at significant expense by people whose entire job is to make you feel like what you have is no longer enough. And by the time you finish watching this, you will understand exactly how it was done, step by step, with precision. Because recognizing this one pattern is worth more money than most people will ever realize, and it starts right now. Here is something the tech industry will never put in a press release. The most profitable thing they sell is not hardware, not even close. It is not software either. The most profitable thing they sell is a feeling of inadequacy, timed, targeted, and delivered on a predictable schedule. Think about what actually happens at a major product announcement. A company rents an auditorium, they hire lighting designers, sound engineers, choreographers. They rehearse for weeks. A polished executive walks onto a stage and speaks for 90 minutes, using words like revolutionary, reimagined, and the most powerful ever. And by the end of it, hundreds of millions of people who were perfectly content that morning feel a vague but persistent dissatisfaction with what they own. That is not a side effect of the marketing. That dissatisfaction, that quiet restlessness you feel, that is the entire point of it. The product launch is not really about the new device. It is about reframing your existing one, making what you have feel lesser overnight. The moment a company says, our new camera delivers unprecedented clarity, what they are really saying is, your current camera is producing mediocre images. You just didn't know it until now. That psychological reframing is not accidental. It is engineered with precision, and it works on almost everyone. It works because human beings naturally evaluate things in comparison, not in absolute terms. We do not judge what we have on its own. Your phone does not feel slow until someone shows you one that is faster. Your laptop does not feel outdated until a newer version exists. The device itself has not changed. The reference point has. And controlling the reference point is exactly how you control consumer behavior at massive scale. But manufactured dissatisfaction alone is not enough to sustain a trillion-dollar industry. The devices themselves need to have a limited useful lifespan, not because technology demands it, but because business models do. And there are two very deliberate ways this happens. The first is through software. Every major operating system update is optimized for the latest hardware. That is not a bug, that's a feature, in the most cynical sense of the word. When a new OS drops and your older device runs hotter, drains faster, or stutters through basic tasks, it is not because your device is broken. It is because the software was tuned for a processor 2 or 3 generations ahead of yours. The experience degrades, your frustration grows, and the manufacturer is waiting patiently, quietly, for you to finally reach your breaking point. In 2017, one of the largest smartphone companies in the world was caught doing this explicitly, intentionally slowing down older models through a software update. They cited battery health management as the reason. The class action lawsuit that followed resulted in a settlement worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But the most revealing detail was the public reaction. People were not shocked. They had suspected it for years. The timing had always seemed too convenient. The second mechanism is physical design. Modern consumer electronics are, by and large, intentionally difficult to repair. This is not an accident of engineering. Batteries are glued into place. Components are soldered to boards that cannot be separated. Proprietary screws require tools that are not commercially available anywhere. When something goes wrong, and eventually something always does, your realistic options are pay for an expensive repair or simply buy a new one. The math is designed to push you toward buying new. A battery replacement might cost $80 or $90. A screen repair might run $200. And sitting right next to those numbers is a trade-in offer that makes upgrading feel almost rational by comparison. Almost, but not quite. What doesn't get calculated in that moment is what it costs you over a decade, or 2 decades, or an entire working lifetime of upgrades. Let's do the math that tech companies prefer you never think about. The numbers are uncomfortable, but they are ones you need to see. The average American replaces their smartphone roughly every 2.5 to 3 years. That's not an assumption. That's the documented industry average. At current flagship pricing, that's somewhere around $800 to $1,200 per cycle, a significant sum paid repeatedly for decades. Over a 40-year adult life, you're looking at somewhere between $12,000 and $17,000 on smartphones alone, and that's before factoring in accessories, protection plans, and financing charges that spread the pain thin enough to feel almost manageable. But smartphones are just one line item. Add laptops, add tablets, add wireless earbuds that last 18 months before the battery degrades beyond usefulness. Add smartwatches, smart speakers, streaming devices, and whatever category of gadget gets invented and normalized between now and when you retire. Consumer electronics research consistently puts total annual household spending on personal technology between $1,500 and $2,000 per year for the average American. Over 40 years, that's between $60,000 and $80,000 in raw spending alone, before a single dollar of interest or return is considered. Now run that same figure through a compound interest calculator. What if instead of upgrading everything, a household invested just half of that annual tech spend? $800 a year, invested at a modest historical return rate, over 40 years grows to somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. That's the real hidden price tag of the upgrade cycle, not the sticker price of any single device sitting in any store window. The true cost is accumulated, compounded, built quietly, over a lifetime of being convinced that what you have is simply no longer enough. Here is where the manipulation gets sophisticated and subtle. Financial tricks and software degradation could only take the industry so far. What really locks the cycle in place is social engineering, the slow, deliberate construction of a cultural norm around constant upgrading. A norm that makes regular upgrades feel like common sense and makes holding on to older devices feel eccentric or even irresponsible. This has been accomplished through several overlapping channels, each one reinforcing the others. The first is the influencer and product review ecosystem. Review culture, on YouTube, on podcasts, on social media, is economically dependent on a constant flow of new products to evaluate and discuss. The entire genre would collapse without annual release cycles to fuel it, so reviewers have a structural incentive to frame every new release as significant and every older device as increasingly inadequate. They are not necessarily doing this maliciously. The system simply rewards that framing, consistently and generously. The second channel is the trade-in program. Tech companies have built elaborate trade-in ecosystems that remove the psychological friction of discarding a working device. By giving your old device a dollar value, the upgrade becomes a net transaction rather than a pure expense. You are not spending $1,000, you are spending $200 after your trade-in. Never mind that the device you traded might have delivered 2 more years of reliable service. The math works, the deal feels like a deal, and another perfectly functional device ends up in a processing facility written off as obsolete. The third channel is the most insidious, the social visibility of devices. Phones are public objects. You use them in meetings, coffee shops, waiting rooms. The model you carry is visible. And in enough social contexts, carrying an older device sends an implicit signal about your status and awareness. This is not a coincidence. The annual design refresh exists in significant part to make visible exactly which generation of device you happen to own. Together, these channels create a self-reinforcing loop. The reviews create desire. The trade-in programs lower the perceived barrier, the social visibility creates pressure, and the annual release cycle ensures the entire loop resets every 12 months, reliably, predictably, and at enormous profit to the people who designed it. There is a dimension to this conversation that is almost never included in the financial analysis, and it genuinely needs to be addressed. Manufacturing a single smartphone requires rare earth minerals, lithium, cobalt, tantalum, indium, materials that do not come out of the ground cleanly or cheaply. These materials are extracted through mining processes that are, in many parts of the world, environmentally catastrophic and dependent on deeply exploitative labor conditions. The supply chain for a consumer device is long, opaque, and deeply costly to the planet in ways that the price tag will never reflect. The carbon footprint of most electronic devices is front-loaded. The majority of emissions occur during manufacturing, not during the years you spend using it. which means every time you discard a working device and buy a new one, you absorb the full manufacturing carbon cost of the replacement device entirely without eliminating the cost already embedded in the device you discarded. You are not replacing carbon impact, you are doubling it, cycle after cycle. Globally, electronic waste amounts to tens of millions of metric tons discarded every single year, and that number is growing, not shrinking. Much of that waste is exported to developing nations, where it is processed in conditions that are harmful to workers and surrounding communities alike. Keeping a device in service longer is not technologically conservative. It is one of the most materially responsible choices any consumer can make today. The person using a 4-year-old phone is not behind the times. They are making a choice with real, measurable, positive environmental consequences. And they are being made to feel embarrassed about it by a marketing machine that profits directly and enormously from their decision to upgrade. Understanding a system is the first step to opting out of it. Here's how to do that practically, starting with one honest question. Start with an honest needs audit. Write down what you actually do with your device on an average day. Be specific, be truthful. Check email, browse the web, take photos, video calls, stream content, navigate. That's the real list for the overwhelming majority of people. A device that is 3 or even 4 years old handles all of these tasks without meaningful limitation. The new processor is not faster for anything you actually do. The new camera sensor is not perceptibly better for the photos you actually take. You are buying theoretical capability you will never use at a very real price. Second, invest in maintenance, not replacement. A battery replacement extends device life by 2 to 3 years at a fraction of the cost of anything new. Keeping software and storage lean, deleting unused applications, clearing cached data, performing periodic resets maintains performance that degrades through software accumulation, not hardware limits. These are not glamorous interventions. They won't get covered by any tech reviewer, but they are effective and they are dramatically cheaper than upgrading. Third, reframe your upgrade trigger. The industry wants you to upgrade when something new exists. The rational trigger is entirely different from that. Upgrade when your device cannot perform a task you genuinely need, and when that limitation cannot be addressed through maintenance or repair. That's the real bar. That bar is much higher than a new version was announced. Most devices will serve you for 5 to 7 years before they genuinely reach it. Fourth, consider the refurbished market. Certified pre-owned devices from reputable vendors offer premium performance at 30 to 50% below retail pricing, often with warranty coverage included. The stigma around refurbished technology is entirely manufactured. The devices are functionally equivalent to new, only the box is missing. Fifth, protect your perception. Unsubscribe from product announcement notifications. Limit your exposure to review content in the weeks surrounding major launches. This is not technophobia, it's recognizing that your perception of your current device is most vulnerable precisely when you are consuming content designed to undermine it. Your current device has not changed, but your feeling about it can be manipulated in a matter of minutes. Guard that vulnerability, deliberately and consistently. There's a question worth sitting with after everything we've covered here. A simple one, but one most people never stop to ask themselves. When you upgrade a device that still works perfectly, what are you actually purchasing? Think about that carefully before you answer. Not meaningfully better performance for the things you do daily, not a fundamentally different experience, not even a product that will last significantly longer. What you are purchasing, in most cases, is temporary relief from a dissatisfaction that was manufactured and delivered to you on a deliberate schedule, by a system that depends entirely on your continued participation to sustain itself. The relief lasts weeks, the payment plan lasts years, and the cycle resets at the same time next year, reliably, predictably, and at enormous profit to the people who designed it. The tech industry is not selling you the future, it's selling you a feeling of being current, of being ahead, of not being left behind. And it has become extraordinarily good at making that feeling expire just quickly enough to need repurchasing. That expiration is not accidental, it is engineered. The question is not whether their devices are good. Many of them are excellent. The question is why you are actually buying them, honestly. Are you buying because the device serves your real life, or because a very sophisticated system has convinced you that not buying means falling behind? There is a version of your financial life where you spend significantly less on technology, not by depriving yourself of capability, but by measuring against real needs. Instead of measuring against an artificial standard designed specifically to move product and reset every 12 months without exception or mercy. The devices you already own are, in most cases, not the limitation holding you back. The belief that they are, that's the limitation. And that belief is not yours. It was constructed, tested, refined, and delivered to you by people paid very well to do exactly that. You can recognize it now. You can name it. You can measure your devices against your actual life instead of an engineered standard built to make you spend. That belief was given to you, and now, with full awareness of where it came from and what it cost you, you can give it back.